Welcome to DataHub. As part of the strategic planning process, each FRC received their own platform on DataHub. DataHub transforms a wide range of public datasets into highly visual decision support tools.
This would allow to make quick evidence-based decisions and ensure that long-term strategic supports and services are planned for and can be met.
Hub allows any FRC that has a profile on our site to access comparable data. We're going to have a look at Northside FRC, Northwest Clare FRC and Hospital FRC. The purpose of today is going to identify some of the key statistics that really stood out to us while creating a profile on DataHub. We'll start with Northside, which is 3 clear catchments, a primary, a secondary and a tertiary catchment. These have been mapped and embedded in the site. One of the key things that stood out to us with Northside is the high deprivation rates. They had a total population of 21,600 across their 3 catchment areas. They experienced population decline between 2011 and 2016 by 2%. The age structure across the catchments revealed an extremely young age profile in the primary catchment, almost a middle age profile in the secondary catchment, and then an older age profile in the tertiary catchment. When looking at household structures, in comparison to the state, all 3 catchments had a portion of lone person households. One-parent households were also significantly higher than the state average. You can see that one-parent families were particularly high in John. It was almost 3 times higher than the state average. When looking at dwelling diversity, it reveals relatively low dwelling diversity across all 3 catchment areas in comparison to the state. However, at an ED analysis, we start to see that Killeen A at 2% has a far larger proportion of caravans and mobile homes than the state average. Within economic status, we can start to see that there's actually been a growth in the proportion of people at work between 2011 and 2016. However, despite this, the unemployment rate is still significantly higher than the state. Primary catchment has a significantly higher unemployment rate than the tertiary catchment or the secondary catchment. Now, let's head over to Hospital FRC's community profile on DataHub. Have a look at the catchment. Hospital FRC has a primary catchment of 5,904, with the largest population located within Hospital ED itself. When looking at population change between 2011 and 2016, we saw a minor decline in the population of just under 1%. However, on further analysis, when we broke it down at an ED level, we saw Hospital ED itself experienced a population growth between 2011 and 2016 of 4.4%. Kilteely experienced the largest population decline at minus 5.7%. As Hospital FRC is a local level service provider, it's very important that they have a strong understanding of their age profile. When looking at the population pyramid, we saw a higher proportion of those over 45 than the state average. This was particularly high in the age cohort of 60 to 64 and 65 to 69. However, when we look at the younger age cohorts, we saw very similar characteristics to the state. The most stark difference between the state averages and Hospital FRC's catchment was within this age cohort, 20 to 29. This is indicative of a brain drain. Looking at how the catchment has changed between 2011 and 2016, we see significant growth in some of the younger age cohorts and the older age cohorts, and again, a decline in that middle age cohort, aged 20 to 39. Catchment had very low dwelling diversity, with 98% of all dwellings being houses or bungalows in 2016. Looking at housing tenure, we saw a larger proportion of those owned their house with no mortgage compared to the state. However, we saw a similar proportion of those renting from local authority to the state average. When we analysed it at an ED level, we saw a large proportion of those rented from local authority were located within Ballylanders, Hospital ED, Long. Let's have a look at some of the key findings from Northwest Clare Family Resource Centre's community profile. Northwest Clare FRC has two population catchments, a primary and a secondary. Their total population comprises of 9,409, with 2,331 located within their primary catchment and the remaining 7,078 spread their secondary catchment. When we analysed the age structure of the primary and secondary catchments, we saw some key differences. The primary catchment has a much younger age profile than the secondary catchment. The primary catchment experienced a growth between 2011 and 2016 of those in that youth age cohort. Secondary catchment experienced a decline in all the younger age cohorts. The secondary catchment has an older age profile and has experienced a growth between 2011 and 2016 in those ages 50 to 85. There was a significant growth in those aged 45 to 49 in the primary catchment between 2011 and 2016 at 41%. Dependency ratios for statistical purposes are defined as those outside of the traditional working age of 15 to 64 as a proportion of those within the traditional working age. We noted Northwest Clare Family Resource Centre's catchment had very interesting dependency ratios. We saw particularly high dependency ratios across the catchment in comparison to the state. We also looked at the marital status of Northwest Clare. Within the primary catchment, there was a much higher proportion of single people in comparison to the secondary catchment or to the state average. Marital status at an ED level, we noticed some EDs had particularly high numbers of widows, such as Derrin, Liscannor and Ballysteen. 40% of all housing stock within Northwest Clare's catchment were vacant dwellings, which is noticeably higher than the state. The highest proportion of vacant dwellings were located within Liscannor. The number and rate of Irish travellers was also particularly high in Ennistimon in comparison to the other EDs and the state average. The nationalities across the catchment varied, and we noticed a high proportion of Polish communities located within the catchment. After seeing such high numbers of holiday homes and vacant dwellings within the catchment, we were surprised to see such low median gross incomes. In comparison to the state, a very high proportion of the EDs had medium incomes which were classified as very low or below average, with only one ED's median income classified as high. I'd like to thank you very much for listening today. And if you would like any more information, please head over to www.hubplanning.ie, click on the contact page and get in touch.